We are here. We are live, coming at you on direct from my old stomping grounds. Yes, Ville Saint Laurent, VSL through and through. Here I am today on remote, on location. Normally, I am generally in parts unknown, generally in the downtown core of Montreal. But not today, my friends. Today, we had to make a trip out to the old stomping grounds. Proud to be in my native homeland of Ville Saint Laurent. STLAURENT. Let's go. One of the greatest little chance we had before Ville Saint Laurent. Any VSL old school challenger hockey players in the feed today on this game day? The Montreal Canadiens in action against the Florida Pantherinos at the Bell Center as the Habs embark on a long stretch of home games, knocked off a win earlier this week, an improbable victory nevertheless. And here we are with the Montreal Canadiens, winners of 2 in a row, 4 of their last 6. And are they winning too much? Are they winning too much in the aftermath of Ken Hughes, his real first midseason press conference on the 1-year anniversary yesterday of his hiring? And I got to tell you, I'm just a big fan. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Not going to play the media card. I'm going to come at you in a straight line, telling you exactly how I feel about what you heard from General Manager Ken Hughes yesterday, who spoke for nearly 40 minutes. And obviously, you know, from the beginning, always was a strong believer that Ken Hughes's power agent background was such an asset, such a one-up on the rest of the competition. The fact that this man is now in charge of the Montreal Canadiens. I love the fact that he's been on the other side of the negotiating table. I love the fact that Ken Hughes established himself as a power broker in the National Hockey League, representing extremely powerful, high-paid players, that he knows exactly what makes a market. He knows exactly what makes for a comfortable organization in order to recruit and attract other players that, you know, they'll be comfortable to come to Montreal and play for Martin St. Louis and be managed by a guy like Ken Hughes and be in a market like this. This is what I think is such a strong selling point for Ken Hughes versus the rest of the NHL landscape. But it ultimately has to begin with building a credible winner, with the end goal is always the Stanley Cup. But don't you want to be the next version of the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that is annually fighting for the top spot, annually the team that teams are scared of playing on a night in, night out basis, because you know it's going to be tough. You know they have talent. You know they have depth. That's where I want to see the Montreal Canadiens go. That's the journey I think they're taking with Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon. And I really liked a lot of what Ken Hughes had to say yesterday. And I'm not going to sit here and cherry pick words when Ken Hughes talked about contract negotiations with Cole Caulfield, and that in Ken Hughes's belief, he thinks Cole Caulfield wants to be here long-term. I'm pretty sure Ken Hughes knows that Cole Caulfield wants to be here long-term. I'm quite confident in believing that Cole Caulfield himself wants to be here long-term, that he does see the prize at the end of the stick, and that is chemistry with Nick Suzuki, that these two guys can be part of a foundation that takes the Montreal Canadiens to the 25th Stanley Cup. And ultimately, I do believe that athletes love the challenge, and I think Cole Caulfield understands his place and what he's done, because, you know, in the course of Martin St. Louis' sample size that has now surpassed 82 games, Cole Caulfield has more or less scored close to 50 goals with Martin St. Louis as his head coach. And we're talking about a 48 goal campaign over an 82 game sample size with Martin St. Louis. And he's still young. There's still room to grow. So when Ken Hughes talked about contract negotiations, this is great. It's exactly, I think, what you want to hear, considering that if you're of a certain age and you've watched this Montreal Canadiens team for a long time, you know as well as I do that this has been the Sahara Desert of offense. This has been a deserted island when it comes to a team that is creative, that is free-flowing, that embraces youth, that embraces creativity, that embraces a personality. That these Montreal Canadiens, I do believe, I'm here to tell you, I do honestly believe they have turned the corner. They have reprioritized what their organization is about and where they want to see this organization be in the next 10 years. And I do believe the men charged with that assignment, Jeff Gordon, down to Ken Hughes, down to Martin St. Louis, are the right people at the right time to help steer this ship. And, you know, whether it's Ken Hughes talking about Salfkovsky, who no doubt, and that's what Ken Hughes is really saying there when he talks about the injuries and how there's no perfect model. And the fact that Ken Hughes actually admitted to many microphones, to an open audience, that God, he's not perfect and he doesn't have all the answers, and that Ken Hughes doesn't know the right recipe, the perfect melange to rebuild the Montreal Canadiens, that they are putting their best educated guesses. They're using their brains collectively. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has an opinion. And I think the way they weigh the pros and cons and then ultimately make a decision, of which Ken Hughes, I believe, has the power of veto, that he just doesn't go with the popular direction. Otherwise, you would have seen your Salfkovsky down, and maybe because of all the injuries, that in a perfect world, the Canadians stay healthy, and then we're not talking about lengthy absences of certain players like Brendan Gallagher, for an example, that maybe your Salfkovsky does get demoted to the American Hockey League. But it really was a breath of fresh air that the general manager actually admitted the fact that he doesn't know. There's no right or wrong recipe, no proven model on how to do this. When you look back and reflect on the previous 9.5 years under the previous front office and how they came into every room with the self-belief that they were the smartest people, and that if you second guess their hockey decisions, that you were an idiot, and how dare you question their methodology in terms of how they approached various players or team concepts, whether it's Jesperi Kotkaniemi or outlawing the triple low five, which again, I'll go back to the PK Subban tribute night. Mwah, chef's kiss. Carey Price, PK Subban got together and ultimately worked on making sure to stick it to the previous regime. And what a stupid concept and what a stupid approach it was in the 21st century surrounding your NHL team. So there was a few interesting key moments. Let's talk about this. And as always, the comments are coming in. Feel free to engage. Let's get going. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Costa. Seems like Salfkovsky is accident prone. Hope not. I mean, I don't know what accident prone we're talking about here. We're talking about a lower body injury. Salfkovsky, by the way, is out 3 months. His rookie season is done, dusted. Thanks for coming. And I am not here to talk about Juraj Salfkovsky suggesting that the Montreal Canadiens made the wrong decision. I do believe the right decision was to keep Juraj Salfkovsky with the Canadiens. The right decision was to keep Juraj Salfkovsky with the Canadiens up until he got hurt. Now his season is over. The one area that I think is concerning is, and we've heard this, and I've heard this for so many years from so many former pro players, that if you're hurt, you're no longer really a true part of the team. And that's where I get a bit, how are the Canadiens going to navigate these rather choppy waters? Like, we're talking about a teenage kid who's in a foreign country. You know, his French proficiency is probably not very good. Moving around, communicating in English, I don't know how comfortably he is there doing that day to day. He's in a foreign country. How many friends does he have? Does he still feel like he can go to the team? Injured, especially a guy like him, it's not like he's out for 2 weeks. His season's over. He's out for 3 months. So, like, when you're out for that long, you're really no longer part of the team. So he's still going to go there early in the morning. He's going to lift weights. He's going to do his rehab with the trainers. But that's going to be like 8 o'clock, 8:30. Players only show up around 10 o'clock for practice on a non-game day. So here we are. How do the Canadiens, navigate those waters? I'm going to tell you. I want to make sure that they handle this guy with kid gloves. I understand we're in the NHL. It's like reminiscent, like when we graduate high school and we go to CEGEP, and our high school teachers at the time in grade 11 told us, man, when you go to CEGEP, teachers kind of stop caring about attendance and whether you're at class or not. They're going to start treating you like an adult. Well, guess what? I want Juraj Salfkovsky treated like he's still a high school kid. I want to make sure you're calling this guy. How's he doing? You're sending people to his house. You're inviting him over to your house, keeping him kind of engaged with the team, kind of keeping him engaged with the organization, making sure he's comfortable and that the line of communications are constantly open and active, and that he ultimately is comfortable. So that's the one area that has me slightly concerned. But let's see how the organization sorts itself through that. And when it comes to Ken Hughes, some of the interesting things I thought he said yesterday about Juraj Salfkovsky, that he's not worried about the production side of Salfkovsky's game. They're more worried about seeing the areas they want him to improve on, and that they do see progress in areas, because long-term, they think the changes that Salfkovsky makes to his game, it will allow him to quickly adapt to the North American style and be the successful player that the organization firmly believes that he will be in. So, when it comes to Martin St. Louis, I don't think the Montreal Canadiens could have found a better person that relates to Juraj Salfkovsky that can help push this kid through the challenges and learn fast about the North American game. And looking long-term, obviously Kirby Dach, according to Ken Hughes, is their center. Sam Montembeault is not going anywhere as one whimsical poster sent a DM to me saying they're calling him the Sam Burglar for Sam Montembeault, and that right now Ken Hughes has no interest in trading away goaltender Sam Montembeault, and that's fine, because ultimately, what are we doing here? Like, do you honestly think that if you're like, oh, what are they doing? They have to trade Sam Montembeault. He's too good. He's got a .950 save percentage since Jake Allen has gone down. He started 5 straight games. Probably going to start tonight against Florida for the 6th straight game. And then he's probably going to start Saturday against the Leafs for 7 straight games for Sam Montembeault. Welcome to the world of being a #1 goaltender in the NHL. What are you going to do? Like, who's going to give you what for Sam Montembeault? What? A 26-year-old guy who's a bit of a late bloomer? Like, do you think Sam Montembeault is going to be Tim Thomas 2.0? I don't. I might be wrong. Feel free to call it back to me and make me eat my words. But I don't think he's Tim Thomas 2.0. And when I look at Salfkovsky, when I look at Sam Montembeault, we're not talking about getting a late first-round pick. We're not talking about getting a second-round pick. Heck, you might not even get a third-round pick. And if you do, you're probably going to be on the lower end of the third, closer to the 4th round than it will be to the top of the 3rd round. So, Ken Hughes mentioned this, and I think it's of vital importance, and I'm glad he said it because I am of the same mindset. I hate losing. I hate losing culture. And you still need NHL bodies. You just can't give the keys to the kingdom to all the rookies and say, okay, guys, go out there and make it happen. You need NHL players. You need to create winning culture, winning habits, showing them how to work day in and day out in the NHL. And ultimately, you still need an NHL goaltender. And right now, Sam Montembeault is that guy. So I am on board. Keep Sam Montembeault with the Montreal Canadiens. I'm on board with Ken Hughes. I don't see a lot of value in Sam Montembeault. I actually still think Jake Allen carries more value on the market in this world of we're trading a goaltender than Sam Montembeault does. And then obviously we talk about Cole Caulfield. And when it comes to contracts, that's one thing Ken Hughes won't be transparent on. He's not going to get into the nitty gritty on negotiations. How much does the player want? How much are they offering? And the battle, the back and forth that goes with negotiating. So I'm all on the Cole Caulfield, lock him in. You want 8 years, 8 times 8, $64 million for Cole Caulfield, signed, sealed, delivered. Let's get it going because the future, I think, is bright, led by Cole Caulfield with Nick Suzuki as the young captain growing into his own every single game. The fact that I think Salfkovsky still has a very high ceiling, and we haven't even talked about the blue liners. I wrote some stuff down about this defense and what I think it's going to look like. I wanted to do a podcast yesterday, but I had no time to get this done. So I want to talk quickly about defense. Justin Barron's 2-assist game and the 4-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets. You start to like this guy's game a little bit more. With the eyes big, are the Canadiens going to get another puck-moving defenseman? Because if this power play is ever going to get good again, I believe the one way to get there is getting the next PK Subban, getting the next Andrei Markov. Mike Matheson, can he be that guy? I think for a moment in time for sure, but Justin Barron growing into his own. Mike Matheson will be the leader and will be the guy that I think will help groom and bring along this young core of defensemen. Jordan Harris, Caden Gooley, Lane Hudson, Logan Mailloux. These are the next 6 defensemen that I think are going to be patrolling the blue line for a long time. And I'm here to tell you, this looks like a very talented, a very versatile, and diverse group of defensemen that the Montreal Canadiens are going to have. And if you're going to build a winner, if you're going to build a competing team for years to come, you need rugged, hard to play against, minute-eating defensemen that don't make a shit ton of mistakes on the regular, and not doing the dumb Hal Gill off the glass, out of the zone, job done. No, that's not how hockey is played anymore. You got to make sure guys are on the half wall. You got to make sure your breakouts are crisp. You got to make sure that your good first pass is always a good first pass. And I think with the mobility that you're seeing with some of these guys, some of them are here at the NHL level. You're seeing some of them at the lower levels. You're starting to see progress in the forward direction, which is ultimately what it's all about. So we're seeing more depth on this team, and that ultimately Ken Hughes identifies losing culture and pointed the finger at what happened under Dominic Ducharme and how he lost the room and how the Canadiens recognized the mistake that was made and how they cannot afford to make that same mistake again. Again, very good, very positive to hear transparency, very positive to hear humility, that they don't know everything, but yet they have seen mistakes made by the previous regime, identified those mistakes, and have made it their goal not to repeat those mistakes. So whether it's Evgeny Dodonov and his 2 assists, Martin St. Louis pushing all the right buttons when a veteran is scratched, and how they have a good attitude, and how they seize the moment with injuries, players hurt, and they've taken an opportunity to level up their game. And as a result, they get rewarded with better assignments, better line mates, more minutes on the power play, and ultimately those guys are producing, as Montreal won their second straight when they beat Winnipeg 4-1. They've got 4 wins in their last 6 games. Kirby Dach down the middle is getting better and better and better, as actually, I think, made Mike Hoffman look a little bit better, and Josh Anderson seems to be more engaged. And ultimately, the hockey IQ I see from Kirby Dach is very positive. Good decisions. I don't see a lot of panic in Kirby Dach's game, especially playing such a vital role on this team. It's not easy to be a top 6 center. You've been watching this team a long time. I've been watching this team a long time. The Montreal Canadiens have been starving for depth down the middle, like legitimate depth down the middle here. No disrespect to Thomas Plekanec. Now, it's also interesting when we talk about the injuries as they're piling up. When it comes to Sean Monahan, who apparently is close to a return. And as far as Sean Monahan, who obviously was a very high contributing member to the team in the first month of the season, that Ken Hughes has laid down 3 options for Sean Monahan. They trade him, they keep him, they trade him, but bring him back in the summer. Goes to show you again that Ken Hughes and his front office have identified what they believe to be the perfect melange, and not creating a losing atmosphere and not losing the room by having responsible, hardworking veterans that can complement the game of some of the younger players, and creating some of that dynamic that can help expedite the process of making younger players better and more accustomed to the NHL lifestyle at a quicker rate. That's what it's about. And when it comes to trade rumors and how to navigate those waters and making sure that your players aren't always left in the dark, I really like what Ken Hughes had to say when he talked about communication and how much he believes in open communication on the regular, and that his experience as an agent gave him a window into how players feel in those situations. So Ken Hughes said yesterday, his door is always open to his office, and that if he can, he'll tell you what he can tell you and what he can't tell you. And I get that. I think we all, most of us work for somebody, and that there are times I've gone into my boss's office and there's only so much he can tell me about future plans for various shows or projects the radio station is working on, because you don't know everything yet. But once they know stuff and things are locked in and confirmed, then they can start to tell you more details and give you more information. So I think the Canadiens are running a smart business. I think they have a smart man running the show. So what does that mean for someone like Joel Edmondson? His name's out there all the time. I'm a believer that the Montreal Canadiens should look hard, fast, and furious to move someone like Josh Anderson. So his name apparently is still out there. And Ken Hughes mentioned the fact that for as long as he's been there, Joel Edmondson, Josh Anderson, those names seem to be consistent. And that he actually sat down and said that he met with both of those guys, and that some of the rumors are not entirely accurate. So here we are again, Ken Hughes telling you, being consistent with what he's saying. He can tell you what he can tell you, and he can't tell you everything. So that's where Ken Hughes operates from. And I think if you're a player, you want honesty, and you want people to come at you in a straight line, not zigzag, telling you what you think you need to hear, and just BSing you up and down. So I like the honest approach, and I think players can relate to that. And I think ultimately players will appreciate that moving forward. And what is moving forward, and what is the challenge for the Montreal Canadiens as they move past the midway point of their season? What are the challenges that you can see perhaps creating obstacles for Ken Hughes to successfully overcome and hurdle over? And for Ken Hughes, mentioning that coming into a team where they're trying to build a team that can win on a sustainable basis. Isn't that something you and I have been talking about since we've been doing this together? It's not about flash in the pan, lucky to be here, lady luck landed on her lap, and look what we've done. It's not about that. Yes, it is about winning Stanley Cups, and it is about legitimately competing for one every single year. So yes, the key word there is sustainability, and there's a lot to do to get this team to where you want them and where I want them, and to be the next version of the Tampa Bay Lightning, a dynasty in the making, an annual contender for conference finals and Stanley Cups, and winning President's trophies and being the kings of the Atlantic Division. And they still need to work out how they're going to get there. And I really do appreciate the honesty that they're not feeding you a line. They're not blowing smoke up your keister. They're telling you that they're not perfect and they don't have all the answers. What I do know for certain is Accent Group and accentgroup.com has all the answers when it comes to getting your freight to its destination on time, on budget, smartly, securely, with their assets. Domestically, internationally, it doesn't matter. Accent and accentgroup.com has all the answers. Check them out online at accentgroup.com, a locally owned and operated business in the South Shore of Montreal. And don't forget K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur, proud sponsors of the 3-Star Quiz, Highway 138 in Ganawagi. Premium fuel 24 hours a day at a discount price and the best snacks in the snack game. So that's kind of where we are with the Montreal Canadiens moving forward on this game day, taking on the Florida Panthers tonight, live on TSN 690 at 7 o'clock. Sammy, what up, Sammy? In Gordon and Hughes, I trust. Amen, brother. And I think a lot of people would echo those sentiments as the Canadiens are you don't want to be in the spot where this team is going to ultimately draft 12th, 13th in the draft order, and it's a very tough balancing act. And I think the injuries are going to play a part on that. But when you look at the overall NHL standings, man, like, you tell me, how do the Canadiens catch Columbus? How are they going to do that? How are they going to get there with Chicago, Anaheim? The worst teams in hockey past the midway point. And it's very important to Ken Hughes, I think, and Jeff Gordon, that they have a balance and that they don't create a losing atmosphere, ultimately to the point of losing the locker room. So it's after spending 9.5 years listening to one man's opinion about how to run a team and that thumbing his nose at people that second guessed, it's nice to hear what I think is almost the opposite of what you spent 9.5 years listening to. And I understand that, when Marc Bergevin took over from Pierre Gauthier, everybody was excited about the fact that here's a guy, he's young. You hope that he's modernized. Oh, he's a prankster. Oh, he's a handsome dresser. Oh, he's a handsome guy. All that, he's a gut chez nous, all that stuff. And that's all very true. And it can also be true that the honeymoon quickly came to an end, and Marc Bergevin's relationship with some of the fan base and a lot of the media soured quickly. And I think that Ken Hughes, coming from the agent world, the master negotiator that he was, and I still think is, he understands how to navigate the media, how to navigate this fan base, this market. And more importantly than all of those things, now he's on the other side of the table. And I love that so much, that he worked as a power broker, dealt with GMs, dealt with penny pinching owners, negotiated, and ultimately won more than he lost for his clients. Now is on the other side. He knows that when an agent books a meeting with Ken Hughes to talk about the prospects and the future contract of that agent's player, Ken Hughes knows all the angles, knows the hustle, knows the negotiation ploys, knows the tactics. He sees it coming. He sees it coming. Remember in the great movie 8 Mile, starring the great rapper Eminem, and at the end of the rap battle, Eminem found out a little bit about Clarence, and then ultimately, as the rap battle began, he took all of Clarence's history and ammunition and flipped the script. I honestly think Ken Hughes is Eminem in this rap battle, and that he knows going into Cole Caulfield's negotiations with Cole Caulfield's agent, man, he sees him coming. He knows the moves. It's already checkmate for Ken Hughes. So this to me is very positive. The Montreal Canadiens, I think, have made some smart hires, and they have the right people in place at the right time for this team. And I even go back, like, to defend Dominic Ducharme for a minute. Like, I don't think Dominic Ducharme is an idiot. Like, Dominic Ducharme knows hockey. He knows, how to run a team, but he was the wrong guy at the wrong time for that organization. So I think they've done the right corrections there, brought in the right man at the right time for this team. And it's just refreshing. That's all. It's just, this market deserves a contender. This market deserves for it to be, once again, the mecca of hockey, that it has a smart, efficiently run organization that year in and year out contends, puts up points, make smart moves, and that at the end of that, if they could get to that carrot at the end of the stick. I honestly do believe that unrestricted free agents will put their hand up and say, get me to Montreal. I like that management. I like that organization. I like that coach. It's relatable. They get it. They're modern. You know, I do believe taxation, language, politics, yada, yada, yada. I think all that falls by the wayside if Montreal can ultimately achieve that consistency, that competitive consistency, that players will want to come to a winner and want to come to a city like ours where they look at it and say, this is a legitimate chance for me to win a Stanley Cup or another Stanley Cup. And if we're doing anything else, we're just wasting our time. That's it. If we're not trying to be the best we can be with the goal being winning a title, we're just swimming in mediocre waters. And guess what? You know what mediocrity is? You know what being mediocre is? Being mediocre is death. Either be bad or be great. That's it. Don't settle for mediocrity. And I hate to tell you, for the better part of 10 years, the Montreal Canadiens were content with mediocrity. Salary cap, a fan base that was there through thick and thin, tickets sold, consecutive games sold out, yada, 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 yada. Didn't matter, right? Anything that can be logoed had a CH logo on it. Printed money left, right, and center, and they had a salary cap where the league told you can only spend this much money. And the Montreal Canadiens were one of the richest teams in hockey. They were, they still are, and forever will be. Would like, well, hey, listen, we spend to the cap. We spend to the cap. What do you want me to do? Those days are over. Those days are over. And I got to tell you, as someone that's been watching this team for over 35 years, God, I'm old, 44 years old. I remember the Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup in 1986. I've been watching this team for a long time. Those days, my friend, are over. And I want to see this team ultimately get to the point where great unrestricted free agents are ready to come to Montreal, and this is a sexy market once again, you know? And whether that starts with Pierre-Luc Dubois, you know, who sounds very much like a guy who loves being from here, that would setting up charities in Montreal and Quebec to benefit underserved communities in this province. I mean, this, you know, he's at CF Montreal games in the summer, says he wants to play here. I mean, we're talking about a 24-year-old kid who's having a career year on a first-place Winnipeg Jets team, right? And still kind of, you know, hinting at the fact that one day he wants to be a Montreal Canadian. But that doesn't mean, you know, he's got a year left after this year. It doesn't mean the organization goes out there and offers Winnipeg all they can eat to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. If Pierre-Luc Dubois, my friends, wants to be a Montreal Canadian one day, guess what? Pierre-Luc Dubois will be a Canadian one day. Very reminiscent to me of John Tavares. Infamous Toronto pajama boy, right? With the pajamas in his bed, that infamous John Tavares photo, right? Like if Pierre-Luc Dubois is a man of his word and that he is the equivalent of John Tavares wearing Canadiens PJs in his Canadiens bed, Pierre-Luc Dubois will make sure one day he is a Canadian, right? And I do believe that. And you could go wherever you go, and we hear it all the time. I see it I see it at the text board all the time at our radio station at TSN 690. You know, the Canadiens obviously are a well-traveled fan base. They're an international fan base from all corners of the world. And every now and again, we get text messages to 11690 from Thailand, from the continent of Africa, from points in Europe. Hey, I'm a Canadiens fan, still listening to your show, still following the team, yada, yada, yada. This is because home is home. You know, you could go live in Berlin, and you're from Montreal, but you've lived in Berlin for 20-odd years. Fine. It's where you live. Montreal will always be your home. And if Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'll repeat myself, if Pierre-Luc Dubois wants Montreal to be his home, and he wants to come home and he wants to play hockey here for this club, he will be a Montreal Canadian. But it doesn't mean you go out and you rush and you give up assets and you give up picks in order to facilitate this move. You don't need to be there today, and I don't even think you need to be there next season, because I still think next year is going to be slightly better than this year, but it's not going to be great either. Everybody's learning on the fly. Everybody's growing together. Everybody's learning to be a pro and learning the North American game at the same time, and that's okay. Short-term pain, long-term gain. I'm here for it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. As always, don't forget you can support me by supporting my sponsors like AccentGroup.com, a leader in freight transportation, getting your products domestically from point A to point B on time, on budget, thanks to the professionalism and their strong assets at accentgroup.com. Check them out online. K-Stop Gas Bar and Definer, Highway 138 in Ganawage, and Ash Gregoire Chambly Nissan. They're open on Saturdays. You can drive your next Nissan tomorrow. They're open on Saturdays. Hit them up, 4299 Auto Route 440 West in Laval. They've got over 200 cars on their lot, over 1,000 in their group. Supply chain, be damn. You can get into your dream Nissan right now if you want. And that car you're going to drive to Ash Gregoire Chambly Nissan in, they're going to pay you for that car, and they pay you more than their competition. Part of the reason why they are Quebec's #1 rated Nissan dealership. So thanks for tuning in, you guys. We're back soon. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday. I think we have time to do one on Friday. If not, we're going to hit you up on the weekend. So we're pretty stoked, ready to go for the NFL divisional round. 2 games Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. We've got our picks in. I've already got one upset, Giants. Yep. And guess what? Death, taxes, and Andy Reid off the bye week. Andy Reid has been a coach in the NFL for 24 years. Andy Reid is 28-5 off the bye week. He's 9-1 in 10 games off the bye week with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. Love the Chiefs. Don't see a path to which the Jacksonville Jaguars win this game. Shocking the world. KC, the biggest favorite on the board from the 4 games that make up the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Thanks for all your comments. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. You can hit the bell to make sure you're notified anytime I post a best bet video or any one of my nonsense videos that here at In the Car with Star, proud presentation of Accent and accentgroup.com. We'll see you